Smash that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to tell you is going to make your blood boil and your heart drop at the same time, and if you're a real WWE fan, you cannot scroll past this. Let me ask you something. Where was Roman Reigns when Jon Moxley was out there bleeding for this company? Where was the tribal chief when the chaos was unfolding on Monday Night Raw? Because after what went down this week, Jon Moxley, the most unhinged, unpredictable, dangerous man walking the face of the WWE, did something that nobody saw coming. He broke his silence, and the message he sent, it wasn't a threat, it wasn't a promo, it was heartfelt, it was raw emotion, and honestly, it might be the most important thing said in WWE in the last year. Let that sink in. Jon Moxley, the man who bites, bleeds, and brutalizes, sat down and sent a message straight to the heart of the old Roman Reigns. Not Solo's puppet, not the Hollywood Roman, the real one, the tribal warrior who stood in the ring and carried that company on his back for nearly 4 years. And Moxley looked the world dead in the eye and said what millions of fans have been screaming but nobody in that locker room had the guts to say out loud. But before we get into every single detail of that message, I need you to drop your answer in the comments right now. How many days did Roman Reigns hold the WWE Universal Championship during his historic reign? Drop your answer below. Let's see who really knows their WWE history. Now back to business. Because this story doesn't start with Moxley's message. It starts with what happened on Raw, and trust me, if you missed it, you missed everything. Monday Night Raw was already a powder keg. The tension backstage was at an all-time high. The locker room was divided. The fans were restless. And then it happened, a sequence of events so chaotic, so emotionally charged, that the wrestling world didn't just react to it. It felt it. The kind of moment that reminds you why you started watching this sport in the first place. The kind of moment that makes you forget it's scripted, because the emotion is too real, too raw, too human to be fiction. Jon Moxley has been operating in a different dimension lately. The man is possessed. Since aligning himself with the chaos that's been swallowing WWE whole, Moxley has been a walking storm, destructive, unpredictable, and completely unbothered by consequences. He doesn't care about championships. He doesn't care about politics. He doesn't care about what management thinks, what the fans chant, or what direction the creative team is pushing. Moxley moves on instinct. And his instinct right now, it was telling him to speak. After Raw went off the air, while the arena was still buzzing, while the pyro smoke hadn't even cleared, word started spreading. Jon Moxley had something to say, not to his enemies, not to his allies, but to Roman Reigns specifically, to the version of Roman Reigns that fans have been begging to return. The tribal chief who stood tall, the head of the table who didn't need to hide behind Solo Psycho and a band of enforcers. The Roman Reigns who built his legacy brick by brick, blood by blood, sacrifice by sacrifice. And what Moxley said cut deep. He acknowledged something that very few people in WWE have been willing to admit publicly, that Roman Reigns' absence has left a void that nobody has been able to fill. Not Cody Rhodes with all his American Nightmare glory, not Seth Rollins with his calculated brilliance, not even CM Punk with all his fire and fury. There is a hole at the center of WWE's universe, and that hole is shaped exactly like the tribal chief. And Moxley, the man who respects nobody, stood up and said it, respected it. But here's where it gets complicated. Here's where the emotion twists into something darker. Because Moxley's message wasn't just admiration. It was a warning. It was a challenge wrapped inside a tribute. He told the world, and by extension, told Roman himself, that if the old Roman Reigns doesn't come back and reclaim what is his, then the chaos that's consuming WWE will swallow everything Roman built. Every title reign, every bloodline chapter, every ounce of legacy, gone, eaten alive by a new era that doesn't respect history. Moxley essentially said, Roman, the throne is being burned, and you're the only one with the water to stop the fire. Now let me be clear, this isn't a friendship. This isn't Jon Moxley going soft. This is one apex predator looking across the jungle and acknowledging another apex predator. This is respect born from violence. The kind that only men who've lived inside the ropes can truly understand. Moxley didn't send flowers. He sent a message, calculated, intense, and laced with a challenge that Roman Reigns cannot ignore forever. Because think about what's happening in WWE right now. The landscape is fractured. Fact irons are clashing. New stars are rising. And the man who once stood at the summit, the man who made SmackDown appointment television for nearly half a decade, has been lurking in the shadows, watching his empire get picked apart piece by piece. The bloodline, the faction he built, is now being used as a weapon against everything he stood for. His cousin Solo Psycho turned it into a machine of manipulation and dominance, but without the soul that Roman gave it. And now, cracks are forming. The whole structure is wobbling. And Moxley sees it. Moxley feels it. Because chaos recognizes chaos. What was the name of the original bloodline stable that Roman Reigns led alongside Jimmy and Jey Uso, and who was the first person to challenge Roman's authority within the group? Drop your answers in the comments. Let's see who's been paying attention. Now here's the question the entire WWE universe is asking tonight. Will Roman respond? Because if Roman Reigns heard what Jon Moxley said, and trust me, Roman heard it, then the ball is in his court. The old Roman, the real Roman, the tribal chief who once said, "I'm the greatest of all time," and made you believe every single syllable. Does he come back and reclaim his throne? Does he answer Moxley's call? Does he walk back down that ramp with the lei around his neck and the weight of the entire Anoa'i family legacy on his shoulders? Or does he let the empire burn? That question is haunting every single WWE fan right now. Because if Roman returns as that dominant, methodical, slow-burning force of nature, this entire landscape changes overnight. The alliance structures shift, the title picture transforms, and Jon Moxley, who just put a giant target on himself by daring to call Roman out in the most emotionally charged way possible, suddenly finds himself in the crosshairs of the most dangerous superstar this generation has ever produced. What we witnessed after Raw wasn't just a post-show moment. It was a declaration. Jon Moxley lit a torch and held it up in the darkness, calling for the one man who could match his energy, his intensity, and his willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of this business. He didn't beg. He didn't plead. He dared. And in the world of professional wrestling, a dare from Jon Moxley is about as serious as it gets. The wrestling world is on edge. The locker room is watching. The fans are desperate. And somewhere, Roman Reigns is sitting in silence, listening to every word, feeling every emotion, and deciding what kind of man he wants to be when it's time to answer the call. One thing is certain, nothing will ever be the same after what Moxley said. This is the spark. This is the moment historians will point back to and say, that is when everything changed.